Welcome back to Rewitched, a charmed 1998 rewatch journey. I'm your host, Jess Sabanko, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on one of my favorite shows with you. Though episodes are now shorter, I will still be keeping them spoiler-free and welcome fans new and old to join me on my journey here and on social media at Rewitched_pod on Instagram and TikTok. Currently, I'm on season 5. So this week we're talking about season 5, episode 11, The Importance of Being Phoebe. This week we have Cole as our villain once again, and it's very clear at this point to me that he's kind of like our big bad of the season. We also have these kind of supporting villains in Dex, who's kind of like his right-hand man, and Kaya, who is this seductress vixen demon who I have a lot to say about. We then have all the sisters really kind of taking on the roles of innocence as Cole attempts to sabotage them in different ways in order to distract them, in order to get to the Nexus, which becomes his focus in this episode, and the underworld, which he's trying to reorganize. I mean, how many episodes was it ago? Maybe 2 that he said he would never become evil and never want to take over the underworld. But we see that very clearly that's the path that destiny has put him on, and there was no escaping it because all it took was Phoebe being like, oh, we're not going to get back together and you're never going to be good, to him like go on this really fast trajectory downhill. That, again, I've said before, I think it comes really, really quickly, and I would have liked to have seen it a little more spread out, kind of this downfall. But again, this is what the show wanted to do, how they wanted to portray this tragedy of his character going downhill this way. We see that, once again, everything he wants to do is always about Phoebe. I mean, Dex even is like, oh, you want the Nexus so that evil can spread and you can take over the underworld. He's like, I want it so that evil will spread and Phoebe will turn evil and want to get back together with me. And it's just like, the obsession is insane. And I like it because I think we've seen a lot of like mental health decline for Cole throughout the season. And the obsession and unhealthy love that he has for Phoebe, I remember back when he was first introduced, he talked about the idea that evil can't love, it's lust, it's obsession. And I think we're seeing him as he loses his goodness, which I think has happened since becoming the source. I don't think he's ever fully gone back, even though he's tried really, really hard to that humanity that was within him. I think it's been lost in a way that he was always going to end up going dark again. And that's why he's only capable of this type of love. I think it was really Phoebe returning that love and him feeling genuinely loved, in my opinion, that brought out those good traits in him. And yeah, this episode does a lot that I don't like with his character. I mean, in terms of the entire storyline with Kaya, the way that he talks to and about her throughout the episode is really, really disgusting. To get into her character, I always hate when they bring a female demon in who's like overly sexualized. One thing I think is really interesting about Kaya as a character is the way that she's very sneaky, she's very manipulative, which Dex warns Cole about, and he's like, oh, like, she just has a crush on me, whatever. Again, men always underestimating women, and specifically like women like Kaya who are there to take advantage. And I really like that she's so willing to go after Phoebe, which actually does make her a more interesting character than, say, Julie from last season. Though there's still kind of that gross dynamic between them. The fact that she turns herself into Phoebe in order to like be with him and stuff is really disgusting. The way that he's doing all of this, it's a really gross storyline. There's a lot of really just like inappropriate stuff in terms of like sex work coming up here, in the way that at the end of the episode, after Cole turns on Phoebe, he has that other dancer turn into her and then kills her and kind of gets this pleasure out of that, showing that like he wants to kill Phoebe, I guess. It's a really disturbing storyline, and I don't want to go too much into it because I don't have the time to talk about it as fully as I probably could. But I will say that in terms of the way he underestimates her, I think is really interesting. I like the way that she takes control of her sexuality in order to manipulate him and try to gain power the way that she does. And I do think that Overall, this storyline is interesting, though the whole like her shifting into Phoebe, being like, I could be better than her, like comparing herself to Phoebe and like wanting to change herself to be more like another woman to impress a guy is gross. Though I do think it has something to do with power for her, which is an interesting dynamic. And again, like there are things I like about her character, things that I think could have made an interesting longer storyline building up to this. But of course, the episode only wanted her kind of in this one episode arc. Phoebe was pretty easily able to take her out once her powers were restored. In terms of what Cole's doing in this episode, so he's decided to go after the Charmed Ones legally, which is a really smart strategy, and everyone kind of points this out, including Dex. And he starts by having Piper's club have some issues. So there's plumbing issues, there's rats, they get shut down. And Piper pretty quickly after the health inspector shuts them down, starts to think that it's Cole and that like, you know, he's setting this up. And Leo's like, well, why do you think that? And she's like, because if not, the club is closing and like that cannot be happening, whatever. And then we have Paige, who Dex causes her to get into a car accident, which then she gets charged with felony hit and run, which if she was taken directly to the hospital, how did she hit and run? It makes no fucking sense. But whatever, that happens. And then later, Cole kills the woman she got into an accident with, and then Paige gets charged with vehicular homicide and is in pretty big trouble. Daryl even brings up how like he can't get them out of this because this isn't a magical problem. Like there are no demons. The cop who arrested her is not involved with any demons. He's a good guy. But then later, once they realize the truth of what Cole's doing, like he does apologize for not believing them and does offer to help get Paige out, though Phoebe, who is at the time Kaya, convinces against this. In terms of Phoebe in this episode, so Cole is going after her job in that he's having a person she wrote advice to sue her, claiming that Phoebe ruined her marriage by telling her to like run from the relationship, which was actually probably solid advice because I think Phoebe does tend to give solid advice. But she claimed that Phoebe, because her marriage ended in a messy divorce, she's trying to ruin other people's marriages and she has like this whole vendetta and is ruining women's lives basically. So Phoebe does end up, after meeting with lawyers and things, getting suspended without pay. She then goes to Cole, immediately realizing that he's the one who does it. She shows up at his office and is like flipping out on him. She's like, I hate you, as always, and then brings up that like her career means everything to her. How could he take that from her? Then when she's leaving the office, she's spotted by Dex, who mistakes her for Kaya because Kaya, again, disguises herself as Phoebe in order to seduce Cole. He then reveals that Cole is trying to, you know, make moves in the underworld and then kidnaps her and brings her to Cole's apartment. When she leaves, Kaya goes into the office disguised as Phoebe, starts making out with him. Piper and Paige happen to be coming at that time to see Cole, thinking that like, oh my God, like they put it together that he must be behind all of it. They see that and they're freaking out, especially Piper. She's like, oh my God. And that leads to them talking to Leo with one of my favorite things in the episode where she's kind of like, do you think like she's pregnant and evil again? Like what the hell is going on? And Leo's like, well, maybe, you know, she wanted some information and she was using sex as a tool. And Piper's like, I like that. Slutty and manipulative is better than evil. And it's just like, it's so funny. And then of course, when Paige has to go back for her hearing and then ends up staying in jail because it turns into a homicide, we see that Phoebe comes home and Piper's immediately like flipping out on her and then is like, we saw you kissing Cole, whatever. And then she tries to like play it cool. She's like, if you're back together with Cole, like it's fine, but just tell me, don't deny it. Like I'm pregnant and you're messing with my emotions. And she goes, okay, we're back together. And Piper flips out and she's like, you said it was fine. She's like, I was obviously lying. Like he mummified you, he did this. And of course it's Kaya at this point and she's like, oh my God, really? Because what had happened previously was after Dex takes Phoebe to Cole's apartment, he realizes that like he told her information. So he kills Dex and then he decides to keep Phoebe there. He traps her magically within the apartment and then has Kaya come, who repeats some of her phrases to kind of impersonate her and wants her to go to the sisters so that they don't notice Phoebe is missing before they figure things out. He then reveals his plans about the Nexus to Phoebe, not realizing that Dex hadn't mentioned that. but then he decides he has to go back to what he's doing and that she can stay there alone. While Kaya's at the house, she's having this conversation again with Piper, where she eventually convinces Piper that like maybe Cole has done something to her mind and she has to take away her powers so that she's not a danger to them. So Piper does a spell to take away Phoebe's powers. Kaya then sneaks back to Cole's and attempts to kill Phoebe. She finds Phoebe passed out on the floor because she was trying to escape through the vent using levitation, but then when her powers stopped working, she fell to the floor and was knocked out. Cole comes in just as she's approaching Phoebe with the dagger that she found in Phoebe's underwear drawer. There was also this really weird scene where she's like going through Phoebe's underwear and seems like surprised to see a bra in there, which was weird to me because she's also a woman, but whatever. So that happens and she is basically about to kill Phoebe when Cole stops it and is like, I didn't tell you to check in with me. Like, you need to convince them to go to a bail bondsman when the time comes. And then he sends her away. Like, he's like, I put up with you before, but like, stop, basically, like kind of putting an end to her shit. Because again, Cole really does only have the love for Phoebe and the connection with Phoebe. The obsession is all about her. So he doesn't actually care about Kaya, but he does like the attention, just like he did with Julie last season. Ugh, men. But whatever. So she goes back to the manor. And of course, this is when they find out from Daryl what Paige is going through. So they go to visit her at jail. Paige is crying, thinking that she killed this woman. And they say that no, it had to have been Cole. They talk about how he's been mind controlling Phoebe. And then they decide that they, you know, have to get her out the right way because Daryl's kind of like, I can just let you out. And they're like, no, you'll get in more trouble. And Kaya, pretending to be Phoebe, says that they should go to a bail bondsman. They realize they have to put up the house as collateral because the club would have no equity because it's currently closed. So they go and do that. And as they get the receipt from the bail bondsman, he hands it to Phoebe, aka Kaya, and then morphs back into Cole. So we realize it was Cole who set this up. They show back up at the manor, all of them together after getting Paige out of jail, and see that there are a bunch of demons there. That's when we get the reveal that it's actually Kaya and she's the one holding the receipt that they still have the house unless Paige doesn't go to her trial. They're kicked out magically. That's when they're like, oh my God, like we have to get Phoebe back, freaking out. Piper's trying to remember the spell. She can't. At this time, Kaya decides to go and take out Phoebe because Cole's talking about how he'll never be with her and like he's not putting up with her anymore and she should get the fuck out basically as he's going to deal with the Nexus stuff. So she goes, her and Phoebe start fighting. Phoebe gets her powers back in the middle of the fight and is able to vanquish Kaya. She then flies out of the vent using her levitation power and finds her sisters. She talks about how like they didn't trust her before. They kind of underestimated her and not to do it again, that she can go in pretending to be Kaya, do the spell once Cole takes in the shadow from the Nexus and vanquish hopefully both of them. So that's exactly what she does. She goes in impersonating Kaya. And at first, like she's being sexually harassed by the guy because Kaya's a sex worker. It's really gross. She goes down to Cole and he pretty much immediately realizes it's actually her, how smart she is, but how dumb his lackeys are. And then he takes in the shadow. She does the spell. He's trying to convince her to just let evil take over. She doesn't do it. He and all the demons in the house go back into the earth with the shadow. So Cole teleports back in and he talks about how impressed he is with Phoebe and her power and how like that fight she has in her made him fall in love with her in the first place and how he's going to keep trying to turn her evil and get her back. And Phoebe says that like it doesn't matter, like even if she does, like she doesn't love him anymore. She thought he was dead and she felt nothing basically, and that like it's just completely over with them no matter what he does. Like she's never coming back to him. And there's this moment where like Cole just kind of looks completely defeated by this and leaves. Once Paige, Piper, and Leo do come back into this house, there's this discussion about how they didn't even leave one demon for them. And Phoebe brings up, oh, there's like definitely one left in reference to Cole. And it's very clear that they're on the path to vanquishing him. We also have this moment where Leo does tell them that because Cole used his magic, they should be able to reverse it consequence-free, though Paige, of course, brings up that they can't bring back the woman he killed, which is obviously the true evil within the episode because that one is not able to be fixed in any way. And I also will point out that in this episode, Cole really targets Paige the hardest, which I think is an interesting switch because we did see them have that little bit of bonding and sympathy for the demon. But now at this point, it seems that he's turned completely against her and hates her as much as he did in the previous season. And also that he's very willing to kill them and just focus on getting Phoebe back. That's kind of his only goal. And I do wonder where this storyline is going. I know that next episode is the 100th episode of Charmed, so I'm sure they have something big planned, and I'm sure it has something to do with this Cole storyline that we've been very quickly building up to. I'm fascinated to see how the sisters handle this and where we go from here. I will say there's a lot of misogyny throughout this episode from different characters. We have obviously from basically every male demon in this episode. I mean, there's even a scene where Dex calls Phoebe a whore when he thinks she's Kaya. And then, of course, that little bit of like Piper with judging Phoebe, being like, okay, well, like, you know, the slutty, which I love that because it's kind of like a reclaiming of like, oh, she's owning her sexuality to do this. But there is that underlying like tone of it and the fact that these words are allowed on TV, but certain other words aren't, right? But yeah, that's all I have for this one. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join me back next time.